The Bible doesn't talk about soft men the way modern culture does. It doesn't celebrate them. It doesn't praise them. It warns about them. And if you're paying attention, you'll see that warning everywhere. Let me be clear about something from the start. When I say soft, I'm not talking about kindness. I'm not talking about compassion. I'm not talking about gentleness with your wife or tenderness with your children. Jesus was the most loving man who ever lived, and he was anything but soft. I'm talking about men who avoid hardship, men who run from responsibility, men who choose comfort over calling, men who would rather be liked than be righteous, men who bend when they should stand, men who compromise when they should confront, men who are more concerned with feelings than truth. The Bible has a word for these men. Actually, it has several, and none of them are compliments. Proverbs 12 verse 24 says, "The hand of the diligent will rule, while the slothful will be put to forced labor." Notice that? The soft man, the lazy man, the man who avoids hard work doesn't just fail. He becomes enslaved. He ends up serving instead of leading, following instead of building, dependent instead of self-sufficient. That's the first warning about soft men. They end up enslaved. Not literally, though sometimes that too, but enslaved to their circumstances. Enslaved to their comfort, enslaved to systems they don't control, enslaved to people they should be leading. A soft man can't lead because he's never learned to discipline himself. And a man who can't discipline himself will always be ruled by someone who can. Look at the Israelites in the wilderness. God delivered them from slavery in Egypt with signs and wonders, parted the Red Sea, provided manna from heaven, led them with a pillar of cloud and fire. And what did they do? They complained. They whined. They wanted to go back to Egypt, back to slavery. But because slavery was familiar, slavery was comfortable, they knew what to expect. Freedom required them to fight, to trust, to endure hardship, and they were too soft for that. Numbers 14:1-4 records their words, "Would that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would that we had died in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones will become a prey. Would it not be better for us to go back to Egypt?" Read that again. They wanted to go back to slavery because freedom was too hard. They would rather have their children grow up as slaves than face the battles required to give them a future. That's what soft men do. They sacrifice the next generation's freedom for their own comfort. And God's response? He let them die in the wilderness. An entire generation of soft men never entered the promised land. But because soft men can't inherit what strong men build. Soft men can't possess what they're not willing to fight for. Only their children, the generation that grew up in the hardship of the wilderness, were allowed to enter. Because hardship produces strength. Comfort produces weakness. And God needs strong men to accomplish his purposes. Here's another warning. Judges 3 verses 1-2 says this, "Now these are the nations that the Lord left to test Israel by them. It was only in order that the generations of the people of Israel might know war, that he might teach war to those who had not known it before." Let that sink in. God intentionally left enemies in the land, not to punish Israel, to train them, to teach them war, to keep them sharp, to prevent them from becoming soft. Because God knows something that modern culture has forgotten. Peace without the ability to make war is not peace. It's weakness waiting to be conquered. Safety without strength is not safety. It's vulnerability waiting to be exploited. A soft man in a hard world is a lamb among wolves. And the wolves don't care about his feelings. They don't respect his sensitivity. They don't honor his refusal to fight. They devour him. And here's what's tragic. A soft man doesn't just destroy himself. He destroys everyone who depends on him. His wife, his children, his community. Because when hard times come, and they always come, soft men collapse. They can't protect. They can't provide. They can't lead. Look at Eli in 1 Samuel. A priest, a judge, a man of God, but a soft father. His sons were corrupt, evil, blaspheming God, using their position to abuse people and sleep with women. And what did Eli do? 1 Samuel 2 verses 23 to 24 records his response. Why do you do such things? For I hear of your evil dealings from all the people. No, my sons, it is no good report that I hear. That's it. That's his confrontation. No, my sons, it is no good report. Not discipline. Not consequences. Not removal from ministry. Just soft words. Gentle correction. Hoping they'd change without him having to do anything hard. And because Eli was soft, his sons continued in their evil. And because he refused to confront them, God killed them. All of them. Eli's sons died in battle. Eli himself died when he heard the news. His entire family line was cut off. The priesthood was taken from his descendants forever. That's what softness costs. Everything. Or look at Saul. Chosen by God to be king. Impressive. But soft where it mattered. When God told him to completely destroy the Amalekites, to leave nothing alive, what did Saul do? He compromised. He kept the best livestock. He spared the king. And when confronted by Samuel, he made excuses. He blamed the people. He rationalized his disobedience. And Samuel's response in 1 Samuel 15 verses 22 to 23 is one of the most important passages in the Bible for men. Has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to listen than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and presumption is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king. Saul's softness, his inability to do the hard thing, cost him his kingdom. And from that moment on, he was a dead man walking. Still had the title. Still had the crown. But God's presence left him. His purpose was gone. His destiny was over. Because God doesn't use soft men. He can't. They're unreliable. They compromise. They quit when things get hard. They choose approval over obedience. They choose comfort over calling. Now contrast that with David, a man after God's own heart. Was David soft? Ask Goliath. Ask the lion he killed. Ask the bear he destroyed. Ask the armies he defeated. David was a warrior, a killer, a man who understood that sometimes love requires violence, that sometimes protecting the innocent means destroying the guilty, that sometimes doing what's right means doing what's hard. When David's family was captured by the Amalekites in 1 Samuel 30, his own men talked about stoning him. He had lost everything. His wives taken. His possessions burned. His army turning against him. What did David do? Verse 6 says, "But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God." He didn't complain. He didn't make excuses. He didn't seek therapy or take a mental health day. He strengthened himself in the Lord. Then he pursued the enemy, recovered everything that was taken, and came back victorious. That's what strong men do. They don't wait for circumstances to change. They change themselves. They don't wait to feel strong. They strengthen themselves. They don't wait for someone to save them. They become the savior. Or look at Nehemiah. When he heard that Jerusalem's walls were broken down, he didn't just pray about it. He went and rebuilt them. And when enemies threatened to attack, what did he do? Nehemiah 4 verses 17 to 18 says, "Those who carried burdens were loaded in such a way that each labored on the work with one hand and held his weapon with the other. And each of the builders had his sword strapped at his side while he built. They built with one hand and held a weapon with the other." That's biblical masculinity. Build and protect. Create and defend. Work in war. Not one or the other. But because the world is fallen. Evil exists. Enemies are real. And soft men who refuse to acknowledge that don't survive long. Here's another warning. Proverbs 25 verse 28 says, "A man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls." No walls. No protection. No defense. Completely vulnerable to whatever wants to come in and destroy it. That's a soft man. No discipline. No boundaries. No standards. Whatever feels good, he does. Whatever is easy, he chooses. Whatever requires no sacrifice, that's his path. And what happens to cities without walls? They get conquered. pillaged, destroyed. Every single time. Your life is a city. Your family is a city. Your future is a city. And if you're a soft man without self-control, without discipline, without the willingness to do hard things, you're a city without walls. And the enemy is coming. He's coming for your marriage, your children, your finances, your purpose, your peace, your legacy. And if you're soft, you won't be able to stop him. Jesus himself warned about this. Matthew 11 verse 12 says, "From the days of John the Baptist until now the kingdom of heaven has suffered violence, and the violent take it by force." The violent take it by force. Not the comfortable, not the passive, not the soft. The violent, the aggressive, the men willing to fight for what matters. This isn't talking about being a bully or hurting innocent people. It's talking about spiritual violence. The kind of aggression that storms the gates of hell. The kind of intensity that refuses to let evil win. The kind of force that takes ground for the kingdom of God. Soft men don't have that. They're too concerned with being nice. Too worried about offending someone. Too afraid of conflict. So they let evil advance. They let their families fall apart. They let culture drift further from God. They let the enemy take ground without a fight. And then they wonder why their lives are falling apart. Why their marriages are loveless. Why their children don't respect them. Why they feel powerless and purposeless. It's because they're soft. And the Bible warned them. Ephesians 6 verses 10 to 12 makes it clear. "Be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Be strong. Put on armor. Stand against the enemy. Wrestle. Fight." This is the language of war, not comfort. Battle, not retreat. Strength, not softness. And yet modern Christianity has produced a generation of soft men who think being Christian means being nice. Being gentle, being passive, never offending anyone, never standing for anything controversial, never fighting for anything difficult. That's not Christianity. That's cowardice dressed up in religious language. Jesus called the Pharisees a brood of vipers. He called Herod a fox. He made a whip and drove people out of the temple. He said he came to bring not peace but a sword. He told his disciples to sell their cloaks and buy swords. Jesus was not soft. And he doesn't want soft followers. 1 Corinthians 16 verse 13 says it plainly, "Be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong." Act like men, not boys, not women. Watchful, standing. The Bible is filled with this language because God knows that soft men can't build kingdoms. They can't raise godly children. They can't lead families. They can't change culture. They can't advance the gospel into dark places. Soft men hide. Strong men fight. Soft men compromise. Strong men stand. Soft men seek comfort. Strong men seek calling. And here's the warning that should terrify every man listening to this. Revelation 21 verse 8 lists those who will be thrown into the lake of fire. And who's first on the list? Not murderers. Not adulterers. Not thieves. The cowardly. But as for the cowardly, the faithless, the detestable, as for murderers, the sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. The cowardly. So, the men who knew what was right but were too afraid to do it. Too comfortable to sacrifice. Too weak to stand. God puts them first because their softness is the root of every other sin on that list. A man who is too cowardly to resist temptation becomes sexually immoral. A man who is too cowardly to trust God becomes faithless. A man who is too cowardly to speak truth becomes a liar. Softness is not a minor character flaw. It's a spiritual cancer that destroys everything it touches. So here's the question you need to answer. Are you a soft man? Do you avoid hard conversations because they're uncomfortable? Do you choose entertainment over discipline because it's easier? Do you stay in your comfort zone because growth is painful? Do you compromise your convictions because standing firm is costly? Do you let your wife lead because you don't want the responsibility? Do you let your children disrespect you because discipline is hard? Do you stay in a job you hate because stepping out is scary? Do you tolerate sin in your life because fighting it is exhausting? If you answered yes to any of those, you're soft. And the Bible is warning you. But here's the good news. Softness is not permanent. It's a choice. Every day you choose soft or strong, comfort or calling, easy or excellent. And today, you can choose differently. You can choose to do the hard thing, to have the hard conversation, to make the hard decision, to take the hard path. You can choose to strengthen yourself in the Lord like David, to build with one hand and hold a weapon with the other like Nehemiah, to obey even when it costs you like Daniel, to stand firm even when everyone else compromises like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You can become the man God created you to be. Not soft, not passive, not comfortable, but strong, firm, dangerous in the service of good. The Bible's warning about soft men is clear. They lose everything: their families, their futures, their purpose, their legacy, and ultimately, their souls. Don't be that man. Be the man who hears the warning and changes. The man who sees the cost of softness and chooses strength. The man who understands that following God requires everything and decides to give it. Be strong. Be courageous. Act like a man. That's not toxic masculinity. That's biblical masculinity. And the world desperately needs more of it.